growth puts pressure on culture. Growth actually makes work harder to do unless we do a much better job on actually being real clear about, hey, what's our secret sauce? How do you all work together and what makes that work? And then teach that to everyone as they come in the door. You're just going to get that chaotic hairball of a lot of different preferences about how work gets done.
Welcome to the Who You Know Show, where what you know is important, but who you know? Who you know can make all the difference in your business, career, relationships, and life. Guys, I'm super excited. We got an amazing episode for you today. Today, we're going to be talking about navigating career fulfillment with Dr. Frickin' Dre up in the house. All right, so we've got Dr. André Martin, and he's a distinguished leader who's worked with brands like Mars, Nike, Google, and Target. And he's also the author of the upcoming book, Wrong Fit, Right Fit. Everybody welcome André, Dr. Dre to the house. Let's go.
Hey.
Let's go.
Thanks, fellas. Good to be here today.
Dr. Dre, so I just got to know, what's the new beat coming out, man? What's up?
We're still working on it. I got to keep it hush-hush these days, right?
Yeah.
If you let it leak a little, then the whole thing goes. So it's just going to have to wait. September 12th.
Okay, September 12th. All right,
There you go.
all right. That's good. That's good. All right, so I really want to just dive into this thing because I've seen a lot of changes, right, going on, especially in the workforce. So what I'd like to talk about, my first question for you is about work engagement and productivity, right? We saw that a staggering, I guess, $7.8 trillion was lost in productivity due to workplace disengagement. All right. So can you help us to understand why so many people, find their work really challenging and find like they're just not engaged?
Yeah, I mean, it's the stat that got me writing the book, frankly. And if I look back, it's kind of the thing that I've been working on since the day I hit the workforce. Is this idea that you walk through companies today, and you're just seeing talent that is bringing this much of their self, to their company, right? They walk in, they have the Sunday scaries. Night before that Sunday night, they absolutely don't want to go to work. They're dreading it. They get there and they're low energy, they're languishing, they're quiet quitting, they're doing all the things that we say. And it really comes down to this idea of there's real value on the table, right? From our company, $7.9 trillion of estimated loss of productivity. I mean, that is like staggering. That's
a big number.
That's bigger than the market cap of Amazon, Google, and Apple together. Right, so you think about what you could do with that creative power, that juice. The other thing, it's really bad for talent too, right? Because when you're in an environment that you're under stress, where you're not at your best, man, I mean, it plays with your confidence, plays with your competence, it plays with your relationships at work and outside of work. So I think there's just really this pervasive sense of we got to do some work on work.
Yeah,
we got a better way to do it.
Well, I was just thinking about, as you were saying all of this, I'm like, okay, so you've got this low engaged community of people, but we also have all this technology. Yeah. Right. So I'm confused because you would think one would kind of balance the other out.
100%.
Right. With the advancements in technology, that it would kind of balance out this, disengaged, workforce. Yeah. What do you see going on there?
Hey, I look at it, and I'm really optimistic about what we could do on the kinds of companies we could create. I think we're not that far, given all the technology, from being able to have an employee brand that says this: come to work here, and I'll guarantee you can walk out healthier.
Ooh.
Like, imagine that. Imagine if a company made that statement and made good on that promise. And this is where your point around technology.
Now, are we talking about physical health?
We're talking about physical, mental, emotional, financial, all of it.
Let's go. A little bit of this cash flow?
Yeah. We're talking about all the cash flow.
Wait a minute.
Got a mic drop.
Wait.
Drop that mic.
Wait. Give me your gun, man.
The gun? Was the gun empty?
While he's reloading.
Yeah, I can't.
Where is kind of follow-up question I have?
Oh, there you go.
Where's the time and productivity going, right? Maybe that's another thing. Because I know, and to follow up the question before you answer, I think I've heard recently EY, right, and some other companies, Google, they've been moving to having people come back in.
Yeah.
And they've gotten a massive amount of resistance.
That's right.
but also they have lost productivity. They know, they've done the studies, right? So where's the time going, and what are we going to do in this kind of quandary we're in that I think the pandemic really has developed?
Yeah, so let's start with the pandemic, right? Because the pandemic did two things, frankly. One is it created a different sense of what the workplace should be for us all, right? We ended up working at home for a long time. And there was a lot of people that found a lot of integration to life in that moment, right? So I could do my work, I could be close to my family, I wasn't losing 2 hours to a commute every day. And so there's a piece of that felt really good life was just better in many ways, hard in a lot of ways, but better from a life standpoint. I think the other thing that COVID did is it accelerated all those technology things, right? It forced us to a place. It wasn't the cause; it was an accelerant for us thinking harder about how work could be better. Now, I think as we look ahead, I'm really optimistic for a few reasons. One is we've got all the technology we need, right? So we have all these great workplace technologies that we're basically just throwing at people every day, so it's overwhelming. I think where the energy's going right now, though, it's going in two places. First one is it's bleeding out of our organizations. Right? People working remote or in the office, they're sort of mailing it in a little bit because they don't feel totally valued or seen or engaged. And so their creative energy is going to other things, side hustles, right? It's going to things outside. We're looking for places to use our creative energy. And if our job's super narrowed, we only get to bring 10% of who we are, we're going to start taking that energy somewhere else. Second place it's going is coordination and administration of work, right? It's really hard in this day to do work. Right? So you think about it. Company grows from the three of us. Let's say we found a company together.
All right.
Three of us are in your garage, Trevor. We're hanging out. We're having a blast. We're figuring out this way, and we're jiving. We're doing great work together, right? We're learning how to make decisions, how to collaborate, how to solve problems. And then we add three more people. Well, the thing is, we're bringing them because they're smarter than us, right? They can help us build our product. The thing we don't recognize, every time you bring in a leader, you bring in their culture. You bring in their ways of working. You bring in their favorite technology, their favorite way to run a team, their favorite way to do X, Y, and Z. And if you bring 100 people in, guess what you got?
You got a hodgepodge.
You got chaos, right? You just got chaos. And so you look at this and you're like, growth puts pressure on culture. Growth actually makes work harder to do. Unless we do a much better job on actually being real clear about, hey, what's our secret sauce? How do you all work together and what makes that work? And then teach that to everyone as they come in the door, you're just going to get that chaotic hairball of a lot of different preferences about how work gets done.
Yeah, we're currently in the process of expanding our team right now,
Yep.
and going through some of that and just figuring out the best ways to train and develop and to, make sure the culture's there and all that kind of stuff. So it's important, especially I can only imagine. We haven't had that problem where we've just exploded overnight and had 100 new people or 1,000 like
at that scale,
exponential growth, right?
But even the ones and twos, I can see that to your statement, growth makes working harder.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
and even at a small scale, like one or two for a team of 10 is just like adding 20,000 to a team of 100,000, right?
Right.
So
It's
you look
all
at
relative.
like that one or two, it's all relative, but that person is coming in and they're gonna change the way your company works unless you help them go, hey, we have a secret to code arena success here. This is how we solve problems, collaborate, sell in ideas, manage conflict, develop people, give feedback, all the things.
What if you're so small that you don't have that secret code to success and you're still just figuring it out?
It's then, you know what, you're hiring on values. You better make sure that people coming in, you have an affinity and a connection and that it's easy to be around them.
Okay.
Because that's a differentiator, right? We often, when we're looking for our next new person, we're just seduced by the resume. Right? I want the brightest, the smartest, the best pedigree, the best education, the greatest skills. And often, hey, you give me two people, one with a raw set of skills, but a really good fit to our way of doing things versus the rock star, I'm taking the other person every time.
Absolutely.
Right?
Attitude. Over skills. I'll take that all day long.
100%.
Let's go. I want the right attitude. We can teach the skills.
That's right.
You know what I'm talking about?
I believe that.
Well, that's a great transition into one of the other things that we wanted to talk about, which is being able to find the right fit.
Yeah.
Right. So we're talking about from the lens of the employer, but for an applicant, how do they differentiate between that enticing job right? The new shiny thing that they're going after, and one that really is a good fit for them and their values, their skill set, whatever that may be.
Hey, Mark, I love that question, right? There's a couple of things that through the research became really apparent to me. And this first one is we're often mistaken something that feels exciting for something that actually is a better fit for us, right? So excitement, it's all dopamine, right? It's that jar, it's that shiny, it's that cool, it's the good brand, it's ping pong tables, all that stuff, better pay, bigger title. And rarely in my conversations with the leaders I interviewed, was that a good determinant of whether or not that place was going to be a right fit for you? That is a place where you could practice your craft and do your best work. And what tends to happen is even the starting point, right? We start looking at jobs because we inherently feel like we're not moving forward. We're stagnating. We're kind of bored. And what's happening there could be that actually, you know what, you're mistaking boredom for comfort. Oxytocin is what comes through your brain when you're feeling comfort. It's like a giant big hug. And it's very different than excitement. So I think we often, even starting point, I would tell talent to, hey, before you jump, before you pick up that recruiter call, before you jump on LinkedIn, take a real hard look at the place you are. And do you fit the way it works? Because if it does, I believe workflow is the confident. I believe if you do a good job, if you fit the place you're working, you're going to get opportunity. Right? But we often see that and we're like, nah, I want to move faster.
Well, I think that's what it is. I think a lot of people are playing below their potential, right?
Yeah.
I think most people are. I mean, myself included. I will say this. I know I'm not living up to my potential, right? There's a lot more of me that I can give.
Yep.
I think most people are. And so if you're in a dead-end job or whatever, you're in this job that just isn't like your potential and you're comfortable, of course you're going to go home every night feeling like, is this it?
Yeah,
Is this all there is?
There's no reward.
Right.
You don't feel like there's a reward for the efforts.
What do you do for somebody like that?
Yeah, so I think that's different than what we're just talking. Like sometimes you could be comfortable, you could be progressing. It's going to be a really good place. You could spend 20 years there.
Sure.
And frankly, that might be the best thing for you. And then there are people who are in wrong fit jobs. I got to tell you, in the interviews, guys, like those are the most compelling parts of this work. The thing that got me writing every day was I heard these stories. Really gifted people. We're talking CEOs of big companies, really successful folks, and even early joiners. And they talk about that wrong fit experience. And what they say, and I'll give you the analogy I use in the book, is I have people write a sentence with their dominant hand, and I have them do the same sentence with their non-dominant hand. And writing with your non-dominant hand every day is what it feels like to be in a wrong fit environment, right? It's hard.
Painful.
You're stressed. The quality's low. You don't feel successful. You're worried about whether or not someone's going to see that and make like all those things happen to you. And so when I think about someone in that sort of situation, it can be a huge detriment to their career, right? I talk to folks who lost confidence. They lost confidence, right? Because all your creative energy is going to just managing the emotions of being in a bad place. And we don't realize that. That's where the potential falls away, right, Trev? Is that you get in a place where you don't realize that you're still using your creative energy. You're just using it to manage all these negative perceptions and emotions that you're feeling every day in this place that you are.
Oh, I've been there.
Man,
Yeah, right?
I've been there.
Another mic, like this is.
Yeah, drop that mic. Because listen,
mic
I
drops.
remember, okay, so when I was in the auto industry and I was crushing it, and everything was good, but then I kept hitting that glass ceiling over and over and over.
Right.
And I wanted to move up, and I knew there was more potential, right? So I kept hitting that glass ceiling, and politics and whatever, kept me from moving up. Well, I got complacent, right? I got burnt out.
Yeah.
And I got negative. And so I was still using a lot of energy.
You were.
Right?
Just in the wrong way.
We don't realize it. It's all that creative juice is still flowing. Mm-hmm. We just don't realize that we're flowing it we're ruminating on things we wish were different. We're creating stories about people who are in our lives and how they're to blame for this. We're doing all those things. And I listened to those interviews and I thought the number of people that told me, hey, if I wouldn't have got out of there, if I wouldn't have done something else, it could have been the end of my career. And I think how many people spend an extra month, an extra 6 months, an extra year in that negative space, in that wrong fit, when they probably should have stood up and said, hey, you know what? Anything's better than this. Mm-hmm. And there are times, listen, I'm the first to say, there's times when you got to have a job, right? We got to have jobs.
Yep.
And as long as you're sure about why you're in a place, that it's just a paycheck, it's helping you get from point A to point B, that's okay. But there are moments when we all have choice. And I just want people to choose a little bit faster and a little bit clearer. Because the other thing, you're going to talk about two other things that are happening as you search for a job. The next one is we tend to start the job search with looking for a job. And the thing we don't realize is as soon as you open up LinkedIn or Indeed or one of those job boards and you look at your first job description or job opening, you're in a marketing machine, right? You're in this place where companies become brands. They're going to entice you with bigger titles and cool cultures and all this wonderful stuff. The first thing you have to do is you have to stop and say, hey, it's time to do some self-reflection. Do I know what I value? Do I know the life I'm trying to create? Do I know who I like to work for? Do I know how I like to work? And most of all, do I know what I'm solving for right now? And so in the book, we have these 8 excursions. We just say, before you pick up a recruiter call or go on, just do a little bit of self-reflection, because then you're going to have a really sharp lens on every opportunity that comes by you, and you're probably going to pick one that you otherwise wouldn't have.
I'm just grinning right now. These things that we're talking about, they just translate. I mean, it's relationships, right? And you're in a relationship with your company.
100%.
Right? And so it's similar to, it's almost like a marriage, right?
Very similar.
Look, so Dr. Dre, if you don't want to do this anymore, you can become a marriage counselor, because I think there's a lot of similarities, right?
Yeah.
Grass is greener, maybe sometimes on the other side, or maybe it's our attitude.
Ooh, I got something to say to that. Hold on. Grass is greener. I actually heard Grant Cardone talking about this in one of his books. And he was talking about, if you think the grass is greener, most likely it's because you quit watering your grass.
Ooh, that's a good one.
And of course the grass is greener because that guy's taking care of his grass.
That's good.
He's mowing it, he's watering it, he's fertilizing it. Okay, it is greener. But the reason why your grass isn't green is because you quit watering it. And so I was thinking about, just a moment ago, when I was being so negative in the car business, when I got to that point, that breaking point, what I lost was the water. I stopped watering the grass, my own grass. I stopped watering it, and I started looking outward at other opportunities and started looking, outward. And I lost the gratitude. I lost gratitude for everything I had accomplished, the opportunity that was in front of me. I lost gratitude.
Trev, in the book, I talk a lot about buffers. So whether you have right fit, it's still work. Like if you're in the right fit experience for yourself and it's all flowing and you're at your best, you got to work to keep that.
Still work, yeah.
I mean, it's still work. And we often don't. We just take that for granted too. But when you're in this wrong fit, there's buffers you can put into place. Like things you can do to actually stop yourself from going below the line and becoming so negative that then every moment is colored. Every second is bad. And that, the worst part of that, and what's interesting in the interviews, right, and we probably know this from personal experience, at least I do, is when you get in that spot, you know what you try to do at the start? Work harder. Right? I'm watching everyone else be a success in this company. Everyone else is moving and they're growing and not me. And so all I got to do is work harder. And it's like, that's never the answer, because you know what happens then? Is by working harder, we just exacerbate all the other things that are actually foundational footing for us. And that's life outside of work. And if that's not magic, I don't care how good you are at your job, you can't be great in those hours, 8 to 5. And think about it. I mean, you were saying this about a marriage. Guess the number of years that you'll spend at work during your adult life. Total. Complete full years, every second, every day.
Wow.
I don't know. That's a good question.
13.5 years.
13.5.
Okay.
So full years of your life.
Right.
From 18 to whenever you pass away. That's more than everything except for sleeping.
Okay.
And so make it count.
Right.
Make it count. Give yourself the best opportunity to realize your potential, to show the world your brilliance, because it's a ton of time, right?
Yeah.
It's a ton of time.
You are feeling stuck, okay, in a career that is not moving you forward. You just feel stagnant. You feel like you're hitting that glass ceiling. You don't know how to get that breakthrough. What type of advice, what would be one of the first things that you would say to that person who just feels stuck?
Yeah, I think the first thing is to just say you're not alone.
Okay.
I mean, I always start there, because the minute you realize you're not alone, life gets a little bit easier in many ways, right? So, I mean, $7.9 trillion lost productivity. 32% of people working around the world are engaged in their job, right? So there's a lot of people out there who are struggling, and it's important to know that. So I think the second thing I'd say to them is, hey, it's time to just step back, right? And think about, like, why isn't this working for you? Because that's the other thing we don't do.
Yeah.
Right? We just know it's not, so we jump and run, right? It's a fight or flight. Kind of, that's how our brains work. It's how humans are wired. If something isn't healthy for us, we're going to go try to do something else. But it's really important to kind of sit there and say, hey, what really isn't working? Because often it could just be one leader or one person in that company. It could be one team. It could be that you love the company, you love the product, you love the mission, you love the way everything works, and you're just in a moment. But if we don't stop and sort of take stock of that first, we may jump from something that long term could be the right thing for us.
Absolutely. I think it's most of the time, and for the audience, you could tell me in the chat, right, if you can relate to this, right? So oftentimes, like for me, it was a person. There was a manager, right? I think it always, most of the time, boils down to the people, right? The people you're reporting to. And, you know, think about, again, to your point, what is it that's holding you back? What's making you feel stuck? What's making you feel stagnant? Is it a person? Is it the work itself? Right? What is it?
Yep.
And then figure out how we can solve that problem, you know? Kind of work backwards, I guess.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. And then...
And pause. I think a lot of people are moving so fast, too. Right?
Yep.
Life's just going, pew, like life seems to be going so fast, like, you know, with technology and the way everything is, right? It's just so fast. It's like, when's the last time you just shut it all off?
That's right.
Quiet, you know, complete quiet. And I'm guilty of this too. From the moment you open your eyes to the moment you go to bed, there's like stuff going on, stuff. Just
and one of my favorite books just came out probably 2 years ago. It's called Dedicated by Pete Davis. And it's a book. He basically lays out this premise that says, hey, we are in a crisis of commitment, right? That because of all the stuff, we're all infinitely browsing, right? That's just what we're doing. And so the danger in that is that, again, your creative energy is going there.
Yeah.
Right? I tell my son all the time, who's like profoundly curious, right? He's profoundly curious. But I'm like, hey, all that acquisition of new knowledge, even if it's really good knowledge, if you don't use it, if you don't test it out, if you don't bring something in the world as a result, it's useless. And so again, I think that infinite browsing has two negative impacts, right? The first one is we all think the grass is greener somewhere else because there's someone who looks like me, has the same experience as me, same background as me, and they're in a place that when I see them on Instagram, their life at work looks beautiful. It's not, right? We know that. Like every company's a company, but it looks really good, and so I get enticed by that. And then secondly is I eat up a lot of energy, sort of just mindlessly going through think about how much space we waste, right?
Oh my gosh.
Think about it.
What you just reminded me of, right, was I think that Gary Vee kind of created a big problem for us all, right? Like he did. He showed everybody the way of this content machine.
Yep.
And getting behind camera and, you know, doing what we're doing right now. I mean, we're just feeding this machine, this content machine on social media. And like, so you look online and, you know, everybody's got videographers following them around. Like Gary Vee started all that.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
And like, everybody's got a videographer and it makes your life look so glamorous, you know, and like this Instagram reel, but that's not real life. That's not what it really is looking like.
No, it's not.
And it's just getting worse and worse and worse. Like, I don't know, as a society, when do we say enough is enough, right? And I was also thinking about the other day, like, this cell phone and the power of this thing, and I was thinking about kids, right? Mark, you have your son over here, right?
That's right.
And the power of this thing for our kids. And I was like, you know, I'm not for government control, right? I'm really not. I'm about more like freedom.
Yep.
Less government control. But there needs to be something where we control this for our kids and mandated, like, hey, you know what? You know, you can't go see a rated R movie. I know we're getting off topic and I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but like you can't go see a rated R movie with this technology, or you can't go see a rated R movie if you're underage.
Controls,
right?
Balances. Yeah.
So like as a parental control, having something on this, because I think technology, social media, you know, it's It's hurting our kids.
Yeah.
Well, we're creating distracted kids and distracted adults. You know, I mean, think about the last time you actually had the full attention of the people who were sitting in a room with you, right? This may be the last format where that's really possible, where three of us are like unencumbered and all we got each other to sit and have a conversation, right? But you have to manufacture that now. I mean, that was the dinner table 20 years ago, right? That was the classroom. That was you and me and all of our buddies out sitting under a tree for 5 hours going, I'm so bored. I grew up in the tiniest little town in southern Missouri. Like, there was nothing to do. And so all you had was your ability to create content and experience, right?
Yeah.
But now it's like
your imagination.
We're sort of losing that ability. And back to your point of just pause. Right? Everybody just pause. When you're not feeling good, when things aren't working for you, like just pause, because our immediate reaction is, it should be better. It could be better.
Run. Just run.
Go.
Yeah.
Go to the next thing.
Well, so, and I know one of the questions we had for you was burnout, but tied in with that, let's talk about a company's response, because if an employee is failing, what is the company's response? Well, you're going to be put on a PIP, right? Or some kind of review plan, a progress, probation, whatever you want to call it. And we're going to get this ship turned around, and if not, then you're gone.
That's right.
Right? That's basically it. So how can we, if we are in the right job, it's just stagnated, we're burnout, whatever you want to call it, but we can be successful at that company, is that, I mean, obviously stay in the marriage, right? If we want to use that marriage analogy, like don't get divorced if you don't have to.
Yeah.
Right? But is that, what were your comments there?
Well, I'd say to leaders first. I mean, the cycles of re-recruitment that we have to do to keep our employees committed to our company, to our team, to the job that they have, it's radically increased, right? Think about it. You used to be able to hire somebody, onboard them for 2 days, and then just let Trevor, Mark go out and do their job. Get back together once a quarter, once in a while, have a good offsite, have a celebration. They're good. They're staying. Now it's every day. It's a ground game, right? You are re-recruiting your employees every single day. And there's 4 questions that matter, right? The first one is, why is the world better with us in it? Everybody forgets why the world is better, ultimately what you're trying to do. The second one is, how do we make money or create value? Right? Most people only have this little sliver of the thing. They don't even know why their job matters or how their work, and we don't teach them that. Right? We don't show them how this job is pivotal to the overall sort of value creation thing we're trying to do. Third one is, how do we work? Right? Those leaders are coming in. You got to re-recruit everybody. Nope, it's not this way. We actually do work this way. This is how we get things done here. And the last one is, what's our promise to you? What are we going to give you for spending your days and your energy and your time away from your families to be here and do this thing for us? And if leaders just did that better, because think about it, guys, you have, and your employees, you have 1,000 touch points every single year with the company. How many of those are actually re-recruiting people in a deep way, so you get all the commitment that you deserve out of them having space? I worry about it. I worry about it for companies because people are coming in and they're just half-heartedly showing up. I worry about it for employees, right? Because ultimately, humans, they want to be connected. It's their survival instinct. It's how we made it, right? Is that we're better together. And so we're all looking for that, but we're just distracted. Right, we have this fake version of it out on LinkedIn that seems like I got 10,000 best friends hanging out with me.
Yeah,
I think part of the solution, I mean, is to get rid of some of this remote work. Man, it caused all the problem to begin with. That was a temporary solution, not a permanent solution. We need to be connected. We need to be in person. And all these people, I'm sorry, for all you remote workers out there, I love you, okay? But it may be time to get your butt back in an office. I'm just saying, it may be time, okay? Because you're unhappy. You're at home, and you're whining and complaining about how bad your job sucks, okay? Because you're not fulfilled, because you're at home in your PJs doing your work, right? A lot of people are, and it's like, and I'm not saying I think it's a privilege to work from home. I think work from home is a privilege, and not everybody was capable of being able to handle it, right? Like,
and Trevor, there's a couple things. I mean, hey,
like I'm not capable of driving an 18-wheeler.
Right.
Okay. Never done that. Okay. There's some responsibilities with that.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Same thing. Working from home, it may not seem like there's some responsibilities with that, but there's some huge responsibilities with that. Like, you got to have
100%.
discipline. And if these people aren't working at home with discipline, what are they doing?
Now, here's what I'll say to you, though, right? Here's what I'll say.
I'm just saying.
I love the passion behind it. And I'll say this to you is, hey, there's not one way to run a company.
No.
Right? So I'll give you a really good
No, there's
example. I
not.
worked for Mars Incorporated for a lot of years. It would surprise you to know that their corporate headquarters, 78,000 people, 100 people. And about half of those people only work there every 2 weeks a quarter.
Yeah.
Right? So they were doing sort of remote-ish work a long time. I think the thing that happened is COVID pushed us all into a working model that we didn't know how to do.
No, that's right.
Right?
100%.
There's a way to run virtual teams. There's a
Sure.
way to do that. And we're just, what happened is we got in this model without the tools,
Yeah.
without the capability.
That's right.
And without
You threw everybody in the
Without,
18-wheeler.
without a strategy.
No.
and also without
You threw everybody in the 18-wheeler and was like, drive it.
Yeah, you did. And
What? And now they're crashing the buses, or the 18-wheelers are crashing, man. They're killing kids, and everybody's freaking out.
Yeah.
Okay, and $7.8 trillion later, where everybody's freaking out because you threw them in an 18-wheeler, man, with
threw 'em
no
in.
experience.
And you know, the last thing we didn't have is we didn't have belief. Like, our CEOs, our executive leaders were doing that because they had to. And so my caution to every CEO, every founder of a company is, know your secret code of ring to work. Know how you prefer to work. There's some CEOs out there who prefer to work remote, and they can run the hell out of a remote job, right? Company.
Sure.
There's just a lot of them got forced into it.
Yeah.
And it's not who they are, and it's not how they work, and it's not how the company was founded, right? There are companies that were founded in proximity to each other. And so I think we just have to all take a step back, talent and companies.
And then you have a culture struggle
Yeah.
within your organization because you do have half the people who are like, no, this was the culture. This was what we knew of this company. And like, this is, and then you get a bunch of new employees or people that really enjoy it now who really just want to stay at home. And so there's this clash, and it's like, you know what? You can't make everybody happy.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't. And so if you, there's this saying, if you're speaking to everyone, you're speaking to no one.
That's right.
Okay. I'll give you a perfect example. At our organization, they were doing all these trainings, right? And trying to cater to everybody. It was like, hey, you can come in. We'd love you to come in, but also we're going to do it remote. And also, like, they were trying to cater to everybody.
Can't.
And they were messing it up really bad. And I'm like, dude, you just need to do it in person. Like, we're starving for that. People want the connection.
Yep.
And those that can't show up, won't show up.
Well, and here's the end of the sentence, right? Is that there's no perfect way to run a company,
Yeah.
right? I think what your example shows is exactly the issues that we're trying to do, either everything for everybody,
Everything for everybody.
or we're trying to run in a model, an 18-wheeler that we don't know how to drive. So let's get back to, how do you work at your best in your company?
Yeah.
And then build that system out, and don't apologize for it, because you know what?
Let's go.
Yeah,
Let's go.
There's talent
Let's go.
that are going to want to come your way, and there's talent that are going to want to go work somewhere else, and that's okay.
I remember when the pandemic first happened, I was like, I already knew it was going to happen with virtual reality. I mean, they're talking about VR for training for years and years before even the pandemic. And what have you seen any advancements? I know Meta was getting into, like, obviously, right?
Yep.
Have we seen any advancements as far as, training or corporations using VR to help the workforce?
There's been a ton. So there's.
What are your thoughts around it?
I think there's a lot of prototyping. I think, again,
Okay.
I'm more about the message, not the medium. I think you got to know what you're trying to build, and then figure out the best way to get it to folks. So I'd never get enamored with the latest technology, but there is some cool stuff happening in VR, right? So there's places where, imagine being able to train a factory worker on a line virtually. So I can take a best practice from, the edge of California, and the person who's in a similar factory out in New York can watch that person do that live, or better yet, follow them as they're doing it in a virtual reality. I think that's probably the coolest application. In anything that requires that sort of, tactical skill.
Yeah.
And you can actually pick up a lot of that. It's what the flight simulators did way back, right? They were doing
Sure.
VR before it was even called VR. Those flight simulators trained most pilots.
Yeah.
That are flying planes. And so I love that iteration.
I think it's cool. I think it's
Yeah.
cool, and I think it has an application, right? Like, you could do I remember they were talking about sales training with it, where you would be role playing with someone, like maybe a sales call or what have you, right? And you'd role play and do stuff like that. But they're not in the room with you, right? Mm-hmm. You know, you just put the thing on and you're just.
So I think it's got limitations, but it's cool. It's the latest thing. Like it's a gadget that people love gadgets.
Yeah.
So it's invigorating a lot of training with people saying, hey, you can do it by VR. And again, I go back to the idea that there's a lot of things you just need to be together to do, right? You know, and so if you are a remote company, if you're one of those companies, when you pull your folks together, stop like drowning them in content. Because that's the moment where we're going to build a strong relationship. We're going to build trust. We're going to get to know each other. So when we're off on video at the different parts of the world, we're going to want to help each other succeed. And if we don't have that, you know, you tend to lose a lot of that connective tissue, right?
Such a great point. So you're saying, like, if you're doing
Sensory
a training,
overload.
yeah, you're doing a training. Don't just do a presentation and, like, you know, present them to death. No. Like, you got your people together, which is an accomplishment, right? Especially in today's world. Like, that's an accomplishment. Again, if you're getting your people together, it's awesome. Reward them, allow them to connect, allow them to. Now, what do you say to that person? Again,
allow them to engage.
What about the introvert who's like, I don't like being here. I don't want to be here, right? But, I mean, again, you can't please everybody.
You can't please everybody.
And that person's probably going to weed out anyway.
Yeah. And I do. Like, I watch. You go to a sales conference. You go to a finance conference. We just pack them in, right? And what's interesting is people are under cognitive load already. You leave your job. You go to this conference. You about have 5% of your capacity available to learn anything. And by the first hour, you're over the line. And the thing is even if you're in your optimal learning environment, you know what happens to knowledge once you acquire it if you don't use it right away? Within 24 hours, about 70% of it's gone.
It's gone. I
And so it's like I'm come from this field. I come from this industry. I'm like, the amount of money that we waste because we don't give people the pause.
The pause, yeah.
Like the pause to just go, let it sink in. How are you going to apply it? What's it going to look like? Why does it matter? How are you going to use it tomorrow? And then that alone will sort of carry
So we
the day.
went to Chaz Wilson's conference, Connect. Remember that?
Yeah, Master Connect.
Yeah, and he was talking about that exact same thing. So he's changing his conference where it's this, you know, traditional, you know, speakers. You bring everybody in. You know, you do this big conference. He's changing it to more of an experience where, you know, you do maybe a half day of learning.
Yep.
And then a half day of just you're out on your own. You go out and have experience with the other people, and it's smaller and it's more intimate, and you can talk about. You have that space to think about implementing how you're going to implement the different things that you're talking about, and the collaboration with the other people is really also where a lot of the growth happens as well.
That's right.
But he was talking exactly about that. He was saying these conferences where you're just getting bombarded with info, and I have felt that way. Like I went to the 10X Growth Conference, and it was just like, right?
Hour 2, you're done.
And you leave, and you're like, you just spent $2,500, you know, and you're like
Trying to go over your notes. You're like, what just happened to me?
Exactly. And you feel like, dang, I'm playing so small. You feel this big, right? Because you see all these giants.
Yep.
Right?
And think about if you just had a little bit more time to spend, like someone in that room had the better practice. They had the answer for the thing that you're trying to solve. Probably not the person on the stage. Probably, 6 people in the audience that you never got to meet.
Right.
Didn't have the energy to engage.
Right.
Didn't have a space where you could be in that. Like, that's the thing we got to do more for each other.
Yeah.
I mean, that convening of people in a new way is one of the places where, regardless where work goes, we got to get better at that, more intentional.
I agree with that.
Yeah.
So from a let's say from an employee standpoint, right? If you're working at a company and you feel like it is not the right fit, what should be your steps as far as getting into, and maybe it's getting engaged with your employer and letting them know. I don't know if that's a good idea, if that's what you would suggest. It probably is, right? But can you walk us through that journey? Like, I feel like this is not the right place for me.
Sure.
Where do I go?
I love it. I think the starting point is, can you make it better? Before you assume it's not right, can you make it better? And so in the book and through the interviews, we got all these buffers that we heard about, right? So there's buffers you can put in place to make a hard fit experience actually maybe be a right fit one. And so a couple things that came out that I thought was pretty cool that came from the interviews. The first one is you have to put yourself in a learning orientation, right? Often when we're in fight or flight, attention narrows, our ability to take in new information goes way down, and then stress goes up. But if you can enter this to say, hey, this is my opportunity to learn, to find a better way. When I first started my career at Disney, my first few months there were hard. I'd moved to Florida, never lived outside of Missouri. I was working for a big company. And I remember my mentor, end of my second week, I called him. I said, I think I made a terrible mistake. I don't think this place fits me. And his advice at that time was, if you can be a success here with people that may not work the way you do or maybe see the world exactly as you do, you can be a success anywhere. And so he put me in a learning orientation. What's interesting is, you know what the stickiest learning is that we go through? We all have the same key events that happen to us. We all have transformations that happen in our company. We all have downturns. We all have new teams. We all have all these things that happen, turnarounds. What's interesting is the most sticky of those experiences are hardships.
Yeah, I was going to say the pain.
Actually, the pain gets it at a depth that allows us to really be reflective over time around it. The other thing that stood out, and this was from the Center for Creative Leadership where I started my career, is the difference between those people that excel throughout their career and the ones that we sort of call a hero to zero. They go, and all of a sudden they're like, boom, right off the cliff. The difference is fundamentally that the first group takes key events we all have, and they do the hard work to turn those into lessons of experience. That is, they actually change the way that they work every day. For the majority of us, you know what we're actually doing? We're optimizing a profile of success we've had our whole life. Right? So as much as we like to think we're learning and growing and changing, the truth is
we're optimizing.
You're optimizing. You're actually getting better at the very things you're already good at. And so that's why you see a lot of folks hit a certain level and then the job's bigger than them. Or they go off the cliff and they're all of a sudden not a success. And that's that hero to zero mentality. So my other advice is get in a learning orientation to start and use that learning orientation to build some new skills, right? Some new ways of learning. So once you do that, and let's say you start there with a buffer. Another buffer that I thought was really cool was this idea of a doppelganger, right? You know the term, the doppelganger. Somewhere in the world, someone looks like just like us, right? A twin. Well, the work doppelganger isn't someone who looks like you. It's someone who works the way that you work, has the same skill that you do, the same experience you do. And there's one key difference. You're struggling to find your place, and they're killing it. And if there's someone in that organization that actually is like you and they're succeeding, probably means the company's a good place to be, but maybe the team you're in is not the right place for you, right? So that's a really good way to sort of gauge, is this the wrong or right company?
Okay.
I think, one last buffer I'd give you is find a mentor. And mentoring is one of those things we all say, find a mentor. And it's like, you got to find a mentor, and they have to be capable, and you have to understand how to use them. And there's mentors around craft, like find a really good salesperson who's selling cars. There's mentors around company culture, like the person who's the model for this place, and you want to learn from them. And then there's people that were historians in the company. They know every back corner of that place and can help you build a really good network. So that's the first thing, is we have like 7 or 8 buffers that I'd say, do that work first, right? If that doesn't work and it's still hard, I think the second place is to stop and do that self-reflection. What are you looking for then? What isn't working in this context? And then last but not least is jump when you have a safety net.
Yeah, that's good.
Right? That last one is, I watch people sort of go, I quit. They throw up their arms and they're gone. I'm like, hey, I'm out. Yeah, we got lives to run.
Yeah.
Right? We got people who depend on us. And the worst thing you can do is put yourself in a place of real sort of stress.
Yeah.
In between, if you can help it. And so I just always say, hey, stay there. Stay there, do enough, and make sure you're using your creative energy to find that next thing.
To develop the next
thing. I had that safety net built in when I made that leap of faith and got out of the automotive industry into financial services. But I had that buffer. It didn't make the transition. Well, I'm not going to say it didn't make it easier. It did. It helped because I needed to use the buffer because, man, my first year was rough, right? So I needed that buffer, right? But thank God I had it. Imagine if I would have made that transition and not had it. And, that first year is like, it's really rough. And all of a sudden you're broke. Broke is a joke. You know what I'm saying? So that's tough. And it also, if you have a safety net and you got that safety blanket, right? It helps you to make those decisions confidently.
It does.
Right? Because you may stay in a role that's not meant for you because you're afraid because you don't have a safety blanket.
That's right.
You may stay there way too long.
Or you may leave too fast. Like the other part of that, which is what you're talking about, is you want to make those decisions from a place of confidence whenever you can. And
Absolutely.
not everyone can, right? There's a large portion of the country, and I've had that moment in my life where the choice isn't yours, right? And so, but I think if you have it, respect it. And that's the thing that I watch people do is they get really attracted to being the victim. Right? We kind of, there's something that our bodies do that puts in place where that actually feeds us in a weird way, right? Mentally and physically, it feeds us. And my last piece of advice is don't let yourself be a victim, right? So know what that job is there for you now, because that job now is just a place where you go, earn a paycheck, do what you're asked to do, and all your creative juice is going to finding the next place where you can use your full potential. And I think getting out of that victim mentality is the last thing. Is it's easy to get trapped there. And once you do, you're just on a downward spiral.
Well, you talked about something a minute ago that I want to touch on, the side hustles.
Yeah.
Right? There's a lot of side hustles now.
Tons.
Right? Like so many ways. I see all these little videos like make this much, do this, do that, do that. I'm like, some of the stuff is blowing my mind.
It's crazy.
How people are making their money nowadays. Yeah. So how do we combat that? Okay. How do we combat the side hustle generation and, get people back in the corporate wheel, in the hamster wheel? Because that's really what I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah,
There's so
I do
many,
too.
like everybody wants to just have a side hustle, run their own thing, do their social media influencer. I'm sure the Gen Zs just want to be influencers and this, that, and the other and make it, run their own thing. How do we combat that and get them back in the wheel? Okay.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love the question. I think it's one of the ultimate challenges that companies have. And there's two reasons people are driving towards side hustles. And the first one I have a lot of respect for, which is they don't have the financial means out of their day-to-day job that allows them to have the financial security they need for them and their families. That's a big reason why a lot of people are driving towards those. There you go.
They don't have the cash flow.
I look at that and I say, hey, companies, you got to do a better job on seeing, what do our employees need in order to be a full part of our lives? Because until we solve that, right, until we stop giving the minimum and start saying, hey, actually, there's a quality of life thing we need to meet the bar on, and then let's drive growth and profit all the rest of the way. So I think that's one. That's a reason a lot of folks that have side hustles drive towards them, and they should keep doing it because you got to pay for your life.
I'm
right?
an advocate of the side hustle.
Right. I think the second reason side hustles exist is because we're not getting to use our full creative energy.
Yeah.
Right? How many jobs do we take that the day we take the job, we become about 40% of who we actually are? And we have all these other skills. I mean, I've had people on my team, when I get my new teams, the first thing I sit down, I'm like, tell me every superpower you have. Tell me everything you're great at. And I've had literally AP journalists. I've had designers. I've had furniture makers. I've had all this thing. And I'm like, I'm going to find a way to use that. Right? Because you have this skill that inherently in some way can be a benefit to this company. And so how do companies solve for that? I think we got to stop seeing side hustles as bad, right? As negative. Secondly, is we've got to open up places where people can use their creative energy outside of the title of their job, right? So if you have a journalist on your team and who works in, let's say, their packaging, right, area of the company, why aren't you letting them do corporate communications? Right? Why aren't you letting them on 10% of their time, 20% of the time, a day a week? And so we're going to have to rethink jobs to say, hey, there's
flex roles.
Like there's a core thing that I come here to do. There's a capability you're paying me for. But then if I have these other skills, how do we have a marketplace where instead of hiring a contractor,
have your own side hustle on the side in your organization. Like, hey, here's these projects we're trying to get done over here. If you got this, let's go.
The other way to do it is like, how many of the side hustles can I bring back in-house? Is there any benefit, Trevor, your side hustle has to the company success I want to get to, right?
That's another one.
Hold on,
Yeah, just dump it all out. Yeah.
I mean, that's the question.
Absolutely.
Right? And so like I look at this like simple ones, like someone's a florist, right? They have this unbelievable green thumb. Why not let them put all of the plants in our building every single day instead of paying someone else to do it? Because you know what I get then is I get all of them. And they look at me and they're like, you see me, you value me, you care about me, I'm more than my role. That's going to buy you 20 years, right? We're not really doing that as well these days.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm thinking of a perfect example right now in my head. It's called the Who You Know show. There's a certain organization. I'm not going to name any names. But yeah, I mean, use the talents. Use their talent. I mean, if they got a side hustle, a side gig that they're doing that can benefit the company and the organization,
Get the benefit out of it.
let them do it. They're
Yeah.
gonna love it. And get behind
Support
it.
them.
Yes, stand behind them.
Yeah.
Support them. Maybe put some resources, put some greenbacks behind it,
100%.
and really fuel them and see what happens.
Yeah, you want to talk about you value your employees.
Right.
Put your money where your mouth is.
Well, if
There
you
you go.
value your employees, then you will value what your employees value.
That's right.
Right? You
That's
like that? If you don't value what your employees value, then you don't value your employees.
That's
You see what I'm saying?
I wish I had a mic.
totally
I would
agree.
throw one down.
I totally.
Yeah.
There you go.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but
Love
I
it.
mean, your point's the biggest one out there, right? Is that imagine a day where I look at you and I say, when you walk through this door, you're going to have the opportunity to use all the skills you bring.
Yes.
Right. I mean, that's just like there's such a compelling reason to work for that company. And the fact is right now we put a lot of money in purposeless perks, ping pong tables,
Yeah.
and kitchens, and offices. And I got to tell you,
What's up with that?
nobody cares in the
No.
end, right? If you told me that you were going to spend less on that ping pong table or those micro kitchen snacks, and you were going to invest in me driving a podcast for our company to raise brand awareness, you would turn to me and like, put me in a cubicle. I don't care.
Yes.
Because I'm doing what I'm meant to do on this earth.
100%.
And that, man, that changes the conversation.
Oh yeah.
It definitely
Yeah.
changes the conversation. These organizations, right? These big corporate conglomerates, okay? Y'all need to start
Yeah.
waking up.
See, it's a song. They're looking for love in all the wrong places, right?
That's right.
I mean, I think about like my family members, where they're working, some of the things that you're saying, and it's just like, yep, totally see that. So as far as employee engagement goes, right, developing your employees, for the CEOs, for the leaders, the directors, I don't know, VPs, people that are in management positions, what would you say is the first thing to do to turn their ship around right now? Right? Where
It's a
should they
great question,
start?
Mark. I'd start with get really clear about, again, that secret recipe of success in your company. How does your company work when it's at its best? And start presenting that to the world. So instead of having this aspirational brand, right, all these values, you go to career websites, I mean, they're brands, man. They are some of the most beautiful brands I've ever seen. And the thing that's
Southwest Airlines,
right,
man, their culture's crazy.
crazy.
But they throw a party for people when they get hired.
Yeah.
They haven't hired, like, there's a party. They're going down the hallway and, like, throwing a big party, like, hey, you
Yeah.
just got hired. You know.
Yeah. Man, I have a
Crazy.
perfect example, and I'm sorry to I don't want
Jump
to
in.
throw a loop in it, but you know, my wife, I was talking with my wife. She's in a new position. She's just hired somebody. They were actually starting today, and this very thing came up. She's like, I had a meeting scheduled during the time where we would normally take this new person out to lunch. This new person is getting no welcome. I mean, they're welcome, not even a lunch, right?
And here's what happens, Mark. So here's what you heard from our interviewers, which you guys are going to love, right? There's sort of three versions of a company these days, right? And I have a lot of empathy for leaders building companies. It's hard work, but we have some work to do. The first version is the aspirational one that we recruit people with, right? It's here's your job, here's the perks, here's the things we value, here's what it's like to work here. And you get there on your first day. And that's where they show you the best version of the actual company, right? You have the best leaders sitting in front of you. They're telling stories of the company. You're getting exposed to the products at their best with the customers who are happiest. And then the third version is a place you go work on that random Tuesday morning in October. And this aspirational version versus the place we put you, they don't line up. And here's the cool thing is I've always been looking for research on this. I'm like, I know it's true in my own experience. I know it's true in a lot of the interviewers' experience. And there was a piece of research done by MIT just now that basically they did this work where they said, hey, we're going to look at all the espoused values of these companies that are really good culture companies. And they combed all the materials they have on them, videos and annual reports to kind of find what values do they talk about, right? This should indicate what they care about and what kind of company they're creating. And then they took those values and actually compared them to the day-to-day experience people have and report on as they go to the review sites. And guess what they found? This blew my mind. Zero correlation between those.
I can imagine.
Sometimes there's a negative correlation where companies are standing up saying we're the most innovative company in the world, and
employees
then
are
people are
like,
like, this place is like a
Stagnant.
sweatshop. It's
Yeah.
just like one thing after another. People are telling me what to do, and so you look at that, and I'm like, that's the work you got to do. Is you got to pull down the narrative a little bit and be super honest about who you are, how you work, what you care about on a day-to-day. So on that random Tuesday, what is your company like? And it's probably still really good, right? It's probably still a good place to work for some people.
Yeah, I've always said that, like in these job descriptions, man, they just make it all pie in the sky, and it's all, like show me. Okay, if I'm the trash man, I'm picking up trash. Okay, yeah. I'm just saying.
That's all there is to it.
Right. Like, show me
that's your job.
Yeah.
Show me what it looks like. It's dirty. Okay, I got to get up early, drive around this truck. It's nasty. Okay, I'm just saying it's hard work.
Yeah.
Whatever. I'm just saying, show me the real thing. Don't show me, this commercial, like the guy driving around the truck, and he's like, like, come on, with music and B-roll footage and it looking all flashy. Like, no,
right.
The dude is, what I'm saying? Like, just show me the real thing and give people transparency so that they're not let down. It's all about expectations, right? When your expectations, I do this with like a vacation. You ever had your expectations for a vacation, you've been planning it, and then it doesn't go, and you're like,
Yeah.
and it's still a good vacation. You're like, why are we complaining? We're in paradise.
Yeah.
What are we doing you're sabotaging yourself? But it's because your expectations were so high. And I think a lot of weddings go that way too, by the way, because
100%.
expectations are up here, right? And then reality is here, right? So to quit psyching yourself out, the companies need to stop doing that with the jobs too.
They need to provide a realistic job preview, right? That's the thing.
Right.
Is, job descriptions, just like you said, like I look at job descriptions today for some of and you can go out there, we go on LinkedIn right now, and they are like all the possible things you could do in 20 years of your career if we gave you all the money in the world. Yeah. And the truth is, your real job's only probably 2 of those things. And there's probably 97 other things we didn't tell you about that you're going to have to do day to day. And if we just said, hey, I wish this is the world we lived in. I'm hiring one of the 2 of you, and I say, hey, here's the way that we work, guys. Do you like working that way? If you answer yes, then I say, here's the capabilities we need. These are the things we don't know how to do. Can you do any of those? And if you say yes, then the third piece of information is, and here's what I'm going to give you in return for that hard work. And if we did that, you're going to increase your positive hires by 200, 300%, right? Because you're getting the people that both fit the place you want to work, and they know the job they're being asked to do, and they want to do the job you're asking them to do.
Right.
How cool would that be?
I love this conversation, and while we still got some time in here, Dr. Dre, all right, I know you got your upcoming book. Tell me when this is coming out. Wrong Fit, Right Fit. When is this coming out?
September 12th. You can get it pre-order on Amazon, Barnes & Noble right now, though. So
okay.
Buy it today.
Buy it today. Guys, well, we appreciate you, Dr. Dre, for coming in the
appreciate
house.
You guys, too.
Thanks for listening to the Who You Know Show podcast. My name is Trevor Houston, and if you've enjoyed this episode, consider subscribing wherever you listen and leave us a positive review to help us keep the mics on in the studio. Until next week, that's the show. It's all about who you know.